My name is Clarissa, and I'm 26 years old. I built a career as a photographer, capturing beautiful moments for others while trying to piece together my own shattered life. After my mother died 10 years ago, Dad became my world. We were inseparable until Jennifer entered the picture. When they married last year, she took her kids on their honeymoon to Hawaii, leaving me behind as if I didn't exist. Before I share how this betrayal unfolded, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Also hit like and subscribe if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Trust me, this journey from heartbreak to healing is one you won't want to miss. Growing up in suburban Chicago, my childhood was everything a kid could hope for. Our modest two-story house on Maple Street wasn't fancy, but it was filled with love and laughter. Mom worked as an elementary school teacher, and Dad was an architectural photographer. They were high school sweethearts who built their lives around family values and simple pleasures. I was their only child, and while some might think that would make me spoiled, my parents raised me to be grateful and grounded. Weekends were for family adventures. Dad would pack his camera gear, Mom would prepare picnic lunches, and we'd explore forest preserves downtown Chicago or quiet neighborhoods where Dad would point out interesting architectural details. Photography isn't just about capturing images, Clarissa, Dad would say, adjusting my hands on his Canon. It's about preserving moments that tell stories. Those early lessons sparked my own passion for photography. By 13, I'd saved enough from birthdays and chores to buy my first real camera. Mom and Dad supported my interest wholeheartedly, converting a small space in our basement into a darkroom where Dad taught me to develop film. Everything changed during my sophomore year of high school. Mom started having persistent headaches that medication couldn't touch. After weeks of doctor visits, the diagnosis came glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor. The prognosis was devastating: 6 to 14 months. She fought bravely for 11 months. I watched her transform from the vibrant, energetic woman who'd volunteer for every school event to someone who needed help walking to the bathroom. Dad took a leave from work, and I split my time between school and home, learning to administer medications and help with her care. The night she died, Dad and I sat on either side of her hospital bed, holding her hands as she took her final breaths. I was 16, and nothing could have prepared me for the hollow ache that followed. Dad and I returned to a house that no longer felt like home. Her gardening gloves still hung by the back door. Her half-finished novel remained on her nightstand. Her scent lingered in the closet. Grief consumed us both. Dad took 3 months off work, and I barely managed to finish the school year. We moved through our days like ghosts, eating when we remembered, sleeping at odd hours, and sometimes just sitting together in silence looking at old photos. Slowly, painfully, we began rebuilding our lives. I'd find Dad crying in the kitchen at 3 a.m., and I'd make us both hot chocolate. When I'd have nightmares, he'd sit on the edge of my bed until I fell back asleep. We learned to navigate our new normal together. I deferred college applications to stay home another year, knowing neither of us was ready for another major change. We developed rituals that kept Mom's memory alive. Sunday dinners became sacred when we'd cook her recipes and share stories about her. On her birthday, we'd visit her favorite botanical garden. At Christmas, we hung the ornaments she'd collected throughout her life. By the time I was 22, life had found a different rhythm. Dad had returned to work full-time, his photography business thriving again. I had completed community college courses and built a modest portfolio, landing small photography gigs that eventually led to a studio apprenticeship. Though I moved into my own apartment across town, Dad and I still maintained our Sunday dinner tradition and called each other almost daily. "You remind me so much of her," Dad would say, sometimes a bittersweet smile crossing his face. "She would be so proud of the woman you've become." 4 years after Mom's death, Dad seemed genuinely happy again. He'd joined a hiking club, reconnected with old friends, and expanded his photography business to include teaching workshops. I was thrilled to see him embracing life once more. When he mentioned meeting someone at one of his photography classes, I encouraged him. "Her name is Jennifer," he said during one of our Sunday dinners, a nervous edge to his voice I hadn't heard before. "She signed up for my 6-week course. She's really interested in learning more about photography." "That's great, Dad," I replied, genuinely happy for him. "Is she any good with a camera?" He laughed. "Not yet, but she's enthusiastic. She's actually asked me to give her some private lessons. I raised my eyebrows playfully. Private lessons, huh? Sounds like someone's interested in more than just photography. Dad actually blushed. At 54, he was still handsome with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines that spoke of a life well lived. I couldn't blame this Jennifer for noticing. We're just friends, he insisted, but the twinkle in his eyes told a different story. Mom would want you to be happy, Dad, I said softly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. And so do I. When do I get to meet her? I had no idea then that this woman would drive a wedge between us that would nearly destroy our relationship. Had I known, would I still have encouraged him? The thought haunts me to this day. 4 months later, Dad called to invite me to dinner. There's someone I want you to meet, he said, and I immediately knew this was about Jennifer. He sounded different, excited, nervous, like a teenager about to introduce his first serious girlfriend. I arrived at our family home early to help Dad prepare. He seemed uncharacteristically fidgety, checking his watch every few minutes, rearranging the flowers on the dining table 3 times. Dad, relax, I laughed. I'm sure she's lovely. She is, he said, his expression softening. And her kids are great too. This caught me by surprise. Kids? You didn't mention she had children. Didn't I? Ryan is 13 and Sarah is 11. They're good kids, Clarissa. I think you'll like them. Before I could process this new information, the doorbell rang. Dad practically sprinted to answer it. Jennifer wasn't what I expected. In my mind, I'd pictured someone similar to my mother, who had been naturally beautiful with minimal makeup, preferring comfortable clothes and practical shoes. Jennifer was stunning in a completely different way. Tall and slender with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, she wore a designer dress that hugged her figure and heels that made her nearly Dad's height. Her makeup was flawless, her nails professionally manicured, her smile dazzling. Behind her stood 2 children who looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Ryan, tall for 13, wore khakis and a button-down shirt, his blonde hair neatly combed. Sarah, her hair in a perfect French braid, wore a pale pink dress with matching shoes. You must be Clarissa, Jennifer said, air-kissing near my cheek, her perfume expensive and overwhelming. Your father talks about you constantly. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't necessarily a good thing. It's nice to meet you, I replied, extending my hand to the children. And Ryan and Sarah too. Ryan shook my hand firmly, clearly coached on proper manners. Sarah gave a small, shy smile but stayed close to her mother. During dinner, I tried to engage with all of them. Ryan opened up a bit about his interest in soccer, while Sarah remained quiet, answering my questions with one-word responses. Jennifer dominated the conversation, talking about her interior design business, her recent charity fundraiser, and her tennis club membership. She referred to Dad as Charles, though everyone had called him Charlie my entire life. How did you two meet again? I asked, looking between them. Dad started to answer. Jennifer took my photography workshop. I've always had an artistic eye, Jennifer interrupted. Interior design is really about composition, just like photography. Charles and I connected over our shared aesthetic vision. Throughout the evening, I noticed subtle signs that made me uneasy. Jennifer would touch Dad's arm possessively when I mentioned family memories. She redirected conversations away from any mention of my mother. When Dad brought out dessert, she declined for herself and both children, making a comment about watching our figures, with a quick glance at my plate. As the weeks passed, Dad became increasingly unavailable. Our Sunday dinners were frequently canceled because Jennifer made other plans. When I did see him, he seemed different. He'd traded his comfortable flannel shirts for designer polos. His casual references to Mom stopped completely. 4 months into their relationship, Jennifer had already redecorated parts of our family home. The comfortable sectional sofa where Dad and I had spent countless evenings watching movies was replaced by a white leather couch that looked untouchable. Mom's collection of handmade pottery disappeared from the shelves, replaced by minimalist art pieces and crystal figurines. Most heartbreaking was the disappearance of family photos. The gallery wall in the hallway that had chronicled our family history was now a single large abstract painting. When I asked Dad about the photos, he seemed uncomfortable. Jennifer thought the house needed updating. The photos are safely stored away. Dad, "This is still our family home," I said carefully. "Don't you think some of those memories should remain visible?" He sighed. "Clarissa, Jennifer is trying to make this space work for all of us now. Change isn't always easy, but it's necessary. She's helping me move forward." "Moving forward doesn't mean erasing the past," I countered. "No one's erasing anything," he said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "Jennifer and I are building something new. I need you to respect that." I tried to accept the changes to adapt to this new reality. I invited Jennifer for coffee, hoping to connect with her one-on-one. She accepted, but spent the entire time checking her phone and making comments about how cute my career was, as though photography was just a hobby, not my profession. I attempted to bond with Ryan and Sarah when they were at Dad's house, bringing age-appropriate gifts and asking about their interests. Ryan occasionally engaged, especially when I showed him some photography basics. Sarah remained distant, often saying, "My mom says I shouldn't bother you." 6 months after they started dating, Dad called me on a Tuesday night. "Jennifer and I are engaged," he announced, his voice brimming with happiness. My stomach dropped, but I forced enthusiasm into my voice. "Wow, Dad, that's big news. Congratulations." "We're planning a summer wedding. Nothing too elaborate." Jennifer's version of nothing too elaborate turned out to be very different from what I expected. And as the wedding preparations began, I started to realize just how completely my father was slipping away from me. The wedding planning revealed a side of Dad I'd never seen before. My father, who had always valued simplicity and meaningful experiences over extravagance, suddenly approved every lavish expense Jennifer suggested. The wedding venue was changed from Dad's original idea of the botanical garden, where he and Jennifer had their first date, to an exclusive country club where Jennifer was a member. 500 guests, Charles," Jennifer announced during one planning session where I was present. "We'll need to finalize the list by next week." Dad looked momentarily overwhelmed. "That seems like a lot of people, Jen." She touched his arm, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. "These are important connections, Charles, for both our futures." He nodded, acquiescing as he had on everything else. I barely recognized this man who once taught me that relationships mattered more than status. I had assumed, perhaps naively, that I would be involved in the wedding planning. After all, I was Dad's only daughter. Mom would have wanted me to help him through this transition. Instead, I found myself consistently sidelined. "We're going dress shopping this weekend," I overheard Jennifer telling Sarah one evening when I stopped by Dad's house to drop off some of his favorite cookies. "Can I come?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "I'd love to see what you're considering." Jennifer's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, it's just a preliminary look. Nothing serious yet. We'll definitely include you once we get to the real shopping." That invitation never came. Through social media posts, I discovered Jennifer, Sarah, and Ryan had gone shopping together multiple times. Sarah had been fitted for a junior bridesmaid dress, and Ryan was measured for a ring-bearer's tuxedo, though at 13 he seemed too old for that role. When the formal invitation arrived at my apartment, another shock awaited me. My name appeared under readers during the ceremony. Not maid of honor, not bridesmaid, just reader. Jennifer's sister held the maid of honor position while her college friends filled the bridesmaid roles. I called Dad immediately. "I just got the invitation." "Isn't it beautiful? Jennifer found this amazing stationer." "Dad, I'm just a reader in the ceremony." A pause. "Jennifer thought it would be special for you to read that poem your mother loved. She's really trying to include meaningful touches." The mention of Mom's favorite poem felt manipulative, a way to placate me while denying me a significant role. "Traditionally, the daughter would be the maid of honor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad sighed. "Jennifer's sister has been dreaming of this role her whole life, apparently. And you know Jennifer and I are trying to blend our families. The kids needed important roles too." "I'm part of the family too, Dad," I said, my voice cracking. "At least I thought I was." "Of course you are, Clarissa. Don't be dramatic. You're 26, an adult with your own life. Ryan and Sarah are still children. They need this inclusion more than you do." His words stung worse than a slap. I was too old to matter, apparently, too independent to need my father's acknowledgement. The implication that my feelings were dramatic echoed Jennifer's dismissive attitude. A few weeks before the wedding, I stopped by Dad's house unannounced. I'd been trying to reach him all day about a detail for the rehearsal dinner, but he wasn't answering texts or calls. His car was in the driveway, so I used my key to enter. The house was quiet. "Dad?" I called out. No answer. I wandered through the main floor, noticing more changes. The kitchen had been completely remodeled, all of Mom's carefully chosen details erased. The worn oak table where we'd shared thousands of family meals had been replaced by a glass and chrome monstrosity. Thinking Dad might be in the garage, I headed that way. When I opened the door, I froze. Stacked against the far wall were dozens of boxes labeled "Louise's Things" in Dad's handwriting. My mother's possessions exiled to the garage. I opened the nearest box with trembling hands. Inside were photo albums, the ones that had disappeared from the living room bookshelves. Another box contained her collection of vintage cameras that had always been displayed in Dad's office. A third held her favorite books. Fighting tears, I carried a photo album back into the house. I sat on the new, uncomfortable couch and opened it to find images of my parents' wedding day. My mom looked radiant in a simple white dress, wildflowers in her hair. Dad gazed at her with such love it made my chest ache. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway startled me. I quickly wiped my tears as Dad and Jennifer entered, shopping bags in hand. "Clarissa." Dad looked surprised. "We didn't know you were coming by." "I've been trying to reach you all day," I said, not bothering to hide the album in my lap. Jennifer's eyes narrowed at the sight of it. "Charles, didn't you lock the garage?" The fact that she was concerned about me finding the boxes, rather than the cruel act of banishing my mother's memory, spoke volumes. "Why are Mom's things packed away in the garage?" I asked, looking directly at my father. Dad had the decency to look ashamed. "We needed to make space, honey. Jennifer needed room for her design materials in the office." "So Mom gets erased, her memory boxed up and hidden away." "No one's erasing anything," Jennifer interjected smoothly. "We're just organizing, making the space functional for our blended family." "These aren't just things," I said, my voice rising. "This is her legacy, her presence in this home, our home." "This is our home now," Jennifer corrected, her voice cool. "And while we respect your mother's memory, Charles and I are creating a fresh start." I looked at Dad, waiting for him to defend Mom's place in our history, to defend me. He simply stood there, uncomfortable but silent. "I found her journals," I said. "The ones she wrote for me after her diagnosis. The ones you promised would always stay in her nightstand." Dad paled. "Clarissa, we can work this out." "When were you going to tell me you'd boxed up her life? Or were you hoping I'd never notice, that I'd stop coming around enough that you could just get rid of everything?" "That's not fair," Dad said weakly. "No, what's not fair is watching you erase Mom to please your new fiancé. What's not fair is being pushed out of my own family home. What's not fair is seeing you become someone Mom wouldn't even recognize." Jennifer stepped forward. "I think you're upset, and we should continue this conversation when you're calmer." Her condescension was the final straw. "I'm not a child having a tantrum," I shot back. "I'm a daughter watching her father choose his new wife over the memory of her mother, over his own daughter." I stormed out, the photo album still clutched to my chest. Dad called after me but didn't follow. That night he texted rather than called, "I'm sorry you're upset. We'll talk soon." We didn't talk again until the wedding rehearsal 2 weeks later. By then, I'd resolved to put on a brave face for Dad's sake. But with each passing day, I was beginning to understand that in his new life with Jennifer, there might not be room for me at all. The morning of Dad and Jennifer's wedding arrived with picture-perfect weather. I'd spent the night in my old bedroom, though it now bore no resemblance to the space where I'd grown up. Jennifer had converted it into a guest room with hotel-like impersonal decor. As I did my own hair and makeup, I could hear the excited chatter of Jennifer's bridesmaids down the hall in the master bedroom. No one had thought to include me in the getting ready festivities, though I'd received a terse text from Jennifer, reminding me to please wear the dusty rose dress we agreed on, and to be photo ready by 11 a.m. sharp. I slipped into the dress I'd purchased specifically for the occasion. Looking in the mirror, I forced a smile. Today wasn't about me or my feelings. It was about Dad starting a new chapter. I was determined to support him despite the growing knot of unease in my stomach. The ceremony took place in the country club's manicured garden. I sat in the front row designated as family, but feeling anything but. Jennifer had orchestrated every detail to perfection. Sarah, in her junior bridesmaid dress, walked down the aisle scattering rose petals. Ryan carried the rings on a custom-made pillow, looking uncomfortable in his formal attire, but dutifully playing his part. When it was my turn to read, I approached the podium and unfolded the paper containing my mother's favorite poem about love and new beginnings. My voice wavered slightly as I read the words, acutely aware that Dad was embarking on a future that seemed to have increasingly less space for me in it. After the ceremony during the cocktail hour, I overheard two of Dad's colleagues talking. "Bit odd that Charlie's daughter isn't in the wedding party, isn't it?" one murmured. "Jennifer probably wanted her own people," the other replied. "Besides, the girl's an adult, not like the little ones who need to be included." I slipped away, cheeks burning with humiliation. Was that how everyone saw the situation? That I was too old to matter in this new family configuration? The reception was in full swing when I overheard the conversation that would shatter what remained of my heart. I was returning from the restroom when I passed Jennifer surrounded by several wedding guests near the gift table. She was animated, showing something on her phone. "The villa is absolutely stunning," she was saying. "Private beach access, 4 bedrooms, personal chef included." "When do you leave?" one of the women asked. "Tomorrow afternoon," Jennifer replied. 2 full weeks in Hawaii. I can't wait to show the kids the sea turtles. Ryan's already planning to try surfing and Sarah wants to learn the hula." Confused, I paused. Dad and I had discussed their honeymoon plans months ago. He'd mentioned a 1-week trip to a resort in Jamaica. Nothing about Hawaii, nothing about 2 weeks, and certainly nothing about the children accompanying them. "A honeymoon with kids," one of the men in the group chuckled. "That's different." Jennifer's laugh tinkled like glass. "Charles knows how important it is for us to bond as a real family. This trip is about building our new life together. The kids are so excited for their first trip to Hawaii." My mind reeled. A family honeymoon. Jennifer, Dad, Ryan, and Sarah, playing happy family on a Hawaiian beach. Without me. I hadn't even been told about the change in plans. In a daze, I made my way through the reception looking for Dad. I found him at the bar ordering a drink. "Dad," I said, touching his arm. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Of course, honey." He smiled, but I could see he was distracted, his eyes scanning the room for his new wife. I led him to a quiet corner. "I just overheard Jennifer talking about your honeymoon, Hawaii with the kids." Dad's face fell slightly. "Oh, yes, we changed plans a few weeks ago. Jennifer found this amazing villa that could accommodate all of us." "All of us," I repeated. "Dad, no one said anything to me about going to Hawaii. No one invited me." He looked uncomfortable, tugging at his bow tie. "Well, it's a honeymoon, Clarissa. Not really a full family vacation." "But Ryan and Sarah are going," I pointed out, my voice rising slightly. Dad glanced around nervously. "That's different. They're younger. Jennifer felt it was important for us to have this time together, to bond as a new family unit." The implications of his words hit me like a physical blow. "And I'm not part of that family unit." "That's not what I meant," he backpedaled. "You're an adult with your own life. Ryan and Sarah are still children who need this time to adjust." "When were you going to tell me about this change in plans?" Dad looked genuinely confused. "I thought Jennifer mentioned it to you. She handled most of the arrangements." "She didn't tell me anything," I said, fighting to keep my composure. "Just like she didn't include me in any of the wedding preparations. Just like she systematically pushed me out of every family decision since you met her." "You're overreacting," Dad said, his expression hardening. "Jennifer has gone out of her way to include you." "In what way, Dad?" "By relegating me to reading a poem at your wedding instead of standing up with you, by packing away all traces of Mom, by planning a family honeymoon and not even telling me the destination had changed." "Lower your voice," he hissed, glancing around at nearby guests. "This is not the time or place." "When is the time you're leaving tomorrow for 2 weeks? You've been avoiding any real conversation with me for months." "Jennifer feels you're too attached to me," Dad said, his voice low. "That it's not healthy. And honestly, your reaction right now is proving her point." I felt as though I'd been slapped. Too attached. I'm your daughter. We went through Mom's illness together. We grieved together. We rebuilt our lives together. And now I'm too attached. Jennifer thinks we need this time to establish our new family dynamic. Dad continued, ignoring my hurt. The children need stability and clear boundaries. And what do I need, Dad? I whispered, tears finally spilling over. Have you thought about that at all? Before he could answer, Jennifer appeared at his side, slipping her arm through his. There you are, Charles. Everyone's waiting for our first dance. She glanced at me, noting my tears with a fleeting look of satisfaction. Is everything okay? Fine, Dad said quickly. Clarissa and I were just talking about your honeymoon plans. Oh, Jennifer's smile was practiced. It's going to be magnificent. The children are so excited. All the children except me, apparently, I said quietly. Jennifer's eyes narrowed slightly. Clarissa, you're a grown woman with a career. Surely you understand this trip is about helping Ryan and Sarah adjust to their new family situation. I'm part of this family too, I insisted. At least I thought I was. Of course you are, Jennifer said smoothly. Just in a different capacity. You don't need the same level of integration that the younger children do. In that moment, I saw Jennifer's strategy with perfect clarity. She had been systematically separating Dad from me since they met, reframing our close relationship as somehow inappropriate or unhealthy, positioning me as an adult who didn't need parenting while simultaneously treating me like a child whose feelings could be dismissed. I need to go, I said, no longer able to maintain the facade. Clarissa, don't do this, Dad pleaded. Not today. Enjoy Hawaii, I said, grabbing my purse from a nearby chair. Enjoy your new family. I left the reception, tears streaming down my face, ignoring the curious stares of guests. In the parking lot, I called my best friend Amanda and broke down completely. He's leaving tomorrow, I sobbed into the phone. They're all going to Hawaii without me. Dad said I'm too attached to him, that it's not healthy. Oh, honey, Amanda soothed. Come to my place. Don't be alone right now. As I drove away from the country club, I kept checking my phone, hoping Dad would call or text, that he would come after me, that he would choose me just once over Jennifer and her vision of their new life. My phone remained silent for the entire 2 weeks they were gone. The only evidence of their trip came through Dad's social media, where Jennifer posted daily updates of their family adventures, photos of the 4 of them on beaches at luau's, snorkeling, hiking to waterfalls. Each image a fresh wound, each smiling face a reminder that I had been left behind, erased from the family narrative as thoroughly as my mother had been. After the honeymoon, life settled into a painful new normal. Dad called 3 days after returning, acting as if nothing significant had happened. His voice was bright, cheerful, filled with stories about Hawaii. The snorkeling was incredible, Clarissa. You would have loved photographing the sea turtles. I remained silent on the other end of the line. Are you there? He asked. I'm here, I replied flatly. Just wondering why you're acting like everything is normal when you haven't spoken to me in over 2 weeks, when you left the country without even saying goodbye. Dad sighed heavily. I knew you were upset at the wedding. I thought giving you some space was the right move. Space? I echoed incredulously. You thought abandoning me at your wedding and then taking your new family on vacation without me was giving me space. You're twisting things, he said, defensive now. No one abandoned you. You chose to leave the reception early. After discovering I'd been deliberately excluded from your honeymoon, a honeymoon that somehow included your new wife's children, but not your own daughter. Can we meet for coffee? Dad asked, clearly uncomfortable having this conversation over the phone. Tomorrow, maybe. We arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Dad was already seated at an outdoor table, looking tanned and rested from his vacation. He stood to hug me, but I kept the greeting brief and impersonal. You look good, he offered, trying to start on a positive note. Thanks. Hawaii clearly agreed with you. Dad winced at my tone but pressed on. Clarissa, I know you're hurt, and I understand why. The honeymoon situation could have been handled better. Could have been handled better, I repeated. Dad, I found out about the change in plans by overhearing Jennifer bragging to wedding guests. No one bothered to tell me you weren't going to Jamaica anymore. No one thought to include me in the new plans. Dad's expression shifted from conciliatory to defensive. The trip was Jennifer's gift to me. She planned everything, including bringing the kids. It was her decision. And you had no say in excluding your own daughter. He fidgeted with his coffee cup. Jennifer felt this trip was crucial for bonding with Ryan and Sarah. They're still adjusting to all these changes. And I'm not, I challenged. My entire relationship with you has been upended in less than a year. My family home has been transformed. My mother's memory has been literally boxed up and hidden away, but no one seems concerned about how I'm adjusting. Dad leaned forward. Clarissa, you're 26 years old. You have your own apartment, your own career. You're an adult. So because I'm an adult, I don't need my father anymore. I don't need family connections. I don't deserve consideration. That's not what I'm saying, he replied, frustration evident. Jennifer feels that your attachment to me is excessive for someone your age. She thinks you need to develop more independence. The words stung like acid. Jennifer has known me for less than a year, and suddenly she's an expert on what's healthy for me. She's raised 2 children, Dad said defensively. She has experience with these things. Her children are 13 and 11, I pointed out. She has 0 experience with adult children. And more importantly, they're her children. I'm yours. Or at least I thought I was. Dad's expression softened slightly. Of course you're my daughter. That will never change. But Jennifer is my wife now, and her perspective matters to me. She believes you and I had an unusually close relationship because of your mother's death, and that it might not be entirely healthy for either of us. I felt sick. So our bond forged through Mom's illness and death, through our shared grief and recovery, is now being pathologized, reframed as something unhealthy. No one's saying our relationship is wrong, Dad backpedaled. Just that it might be time for some boundaries, for both our sakes. Boundaries like excluding me from family events, like not standing up for me when Jennifer pushes me aside, like letting her dictate how much contact we have. Dad looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Jennifer thinks you resent her taking your mother's place. I resent her trying to erase Mom from our lives, I corrected. I resent her treating me like an inconvenience. I resent her manipulating you into choosing her children over your own daughter. That's not fair, Dad protested. No one's asking me to choose. Aren't they? The honeymoon was a choice, Dad. Every time you cancel our plans because Jennifer made other arrangements, that's a choice. Every time you sit silently while she diminishes my place in your life, that's a choice. Dad ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd known all my life. Jennifer says you're being immature about the situation, that your reaction proves you're too dependent on me. I felt a cold anger replace my hurt. How convenient for Jennifer that any objection I raise to her treatment can be dismissed as immaturity or unhealthy attachment. Has it occurred to you that she might be deliberately trying to separate us? Now you're being paranoid, Dad said sharply. Jennifer wants us to have a healthy relationship. On her terms, with her as the gatekeeper. She's not a villain, Clarissa. She's trying to build a life with me to blend our families. That's not easy. It would be easier if she saw me as part of the family to blend, not an obstacle to remove. We sat in tense silence for several moments. I love you, Clarissa, Dad finally said. That hasn't changed. Love isn't enough, Dad. Not when it comes with conditions and restrictions. Not when it ranks me below your new wife's comfort. What do you want from me? He asked, sounding tired. I want you to see what's happening. I want you to stand up for me and my place in your life. I want you to honor Mom's memory instead of letting it be boxed away. I want to matter as much as Ryan and Sarah matter. You do matter, he insisted. Then show me, I challenged. Because right now, everything you're doing tells me the opposite. Dad checked his watch, a gesture that spoke volumes. I need to pick up Ryan from soccer practice. Jennifer has a client meeting. Of course. His time with me was limited, scheduled around their needs. We'll talk more soon, he promised, standing to leave. Things will get better, Clarissa. You just need to give this new situation time. As I watched him walk away, I wondered if anything would ever really change, or if this was the beginning of my slow, painful exit from my father's life. The months that followed proved my fears weren't unfounded. Dad became increasingly unavailable, absorbed into Jennifer's social circle and schedule. Our standing Sunday dinners were permanently replaced by brunches with Jennifer's family or activities with Ryan and Sarah. When Christmas approached, I received a text rather than a call. Jennifer's parents are visiting for Christmas this year. The house will be quite full. Perhaps we can celebrate earlier in the month. We never did. Jennifer posted photos of their Christmas morning, their tree surrounded by presents, Ryan and Sarah in matching pajamas, Dad smiling beside them. No mention of the daughter missing from the frame. I threw myself into work building my photography business and trying to fill the growing emptiness with professional success. Friends noticed my withdrawal, my reluctance to discuss my father or his new family. Amanda urged me to seek therapy, but I resisted, still hoping the situation would improve if I just tried harder, if I was more understanding, more patient. But patience had its limits, and mine was about to be tested beyond breaking. 6 months after the wedding, I received a call from my Aunt Karen, my mother's sister. We'd stayed in touch over the years, though distance and her busy medical career meant our contact was sporadic. "Clarissa," she said, her voice unusually hesitant. "Have you spoken to your father recently?" "Not for a couple of weeks," I admitted. "Why?" A long pause. "He's selling the cabin." The cabin. My grandfather's fishing cabin on Lake Geneva. The place where Mom had spent her childhood summers. Where she'd taught me to swim. Where Dad had proposed to her on the dock at sunset. The cabin that had been in Mom's family for 3 generations. "That's not possible," I said, my voice hollow. "He promised Mom he'd keep it in the family, for me and someday for my children." "I just got a call from Bill Jenkins. You remember him? He owns the cabin next door. He said a real estate agent was there yesterday taking photos." My hands trembled as I ended the call. I tried calling Dad but got his voicemail. I sent a text. "Is it true you're selling the cabin? Please call me ASAP." No response. I drove to their house the next morning, a Saturday, when I knew they'd likely be home. Jennifer answered the door, her surprise at seeing me quickly masked with a practiced smile. "Clarissa, what an unexpected pleasure. Charles is in his office." I stepped past her without waiting for an invitation. Dad looked up from his computer as I entered his office, the space now redesigned like the rest of the house, sterile and impersonal. "Clarissa, is everything okay? Are you selling the cabin?" I demanded, my voice breaking. Dad's expression confirmed the truth before he spoke. "I was going to call you about that." "When?" "After it was sold. Like you told me about the honeymoon change after it was all arranged." Jennifer appeared in the doorway. "Charles Ryan's game starts in an hour. We need to leave soon." "Give us a minute, Jen," Dad said, his tone unusually firm. She hesitated, clearly annoyed at being dismissed, but retreated. "Sit down," Dad said, gesturing to a chair. I remained standing. "Mom wanted that cabin to stay in the family. You promised her." Dad sighed deeply. "Things change, Clarissa. The cabin needs extensive repairs. The roof is leaking, the dock is unstable, the heating system is ancient." "So fix it," I challenged. "Don't sell it." "It's not that simple. Jennifer and I are looking at different vacation options, places that work better for all of us. The cabin is too small for our family now." "Our family," I repeated bitterly. "You mean you, Jennifer, and her kids?" "You're always welcome too," Dad said, but the words rang hollow. "That cabin is my connection to Mom, to her family, to our history together." "It's just a building," Dad replied, his voice softening. "The memories don't disappear with the sale." "But the opportunity to make new memories there does," I countered. "The chance for me to someday share that place with my own family disappears." Dad rubbed his temples. "I understand you're upset, but this decision makes financial and practical sense for us right now." "Us, right." Jennifer reappeared, not bothering with pretense now. "Charles, we really need to leave. Ryan will be devastated if we're late." I laughed bitterly. Heaven forbid Ryan be disappointed. Meanwhile, I'm losing one of the last connections to my mother, and that's apparently irrelevant. Jennifer's pleasant mask slipped. The decision about the cabin is between Charles and me. It's our asset to manage as we see fit. It's my mother's family cabin, I shot back. It was supposed to be part of my inheritance someday. My birthright. Birthright, Jennifer scoffed. That's melodramatic, don't you think? It's a run-down old cabin that's costing money to maintain. We're being practical. You're erasing my mother, I said, no longer caring if I sounded harsh. You've packed away her photos, removed her possessions, redecorated her home, and now you're selling her family property. What's next? Changing Dad's will so your children get everything? Dad stood up sharply. That's enough, Clarissa. You're out of line. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly what's been happening all along? Jennifer has been systematically cutting me out of your life, and you've let her. Jennifer stepped fully into the office, arms crossed. I've done no such thing. I've tried to include you, but you resist at every turn. Your attachment to Charles is unhealthy, and frankly, your obsession with preserving everything exactly as it was when your mother was alive isn't healthy either. Don't you dare talk about my mother, I warned, my voice low. Louise has been gone for 10 years, Jennifer continued, ignoring my warning. Charles deserves to move forward to build a new life. Your refusal to accept that is selfish and immature. The casual use of my mother's name spoken with such dismissive contempt broke something in me. You don't get to say her name. You don't get to judge our family or our grief. You're nothing but an opportunist who saw a vulnerable man and decided to take everything he had, including his relationship with his daughter. Clarissa, Dad shouted. Apologize to Jennifer immediately. I turned to him, stunned. You're asking me to apologize to her after everything she's done, after everything you've allowed her to do. Jennifer has been nothing but patient with your attitude, Dad insisted. She's tried to make you part of this family. No, she's tried to remake this family in her image with no room for me or Mom's memory, and you've helped her do it. Jennifer moved to Dad's side, placing a possessive hand on his arm. Charles and I are trying to build something here, Clarissa. A stable, healthy environment for Ryan and Sarah. Your constant drama and resentment make that difficult. My drama? I echoed in disbelief. Yes, your drama. She continued, gaining confidence from Dad's silence. Your emotional outbursts, your unreasonable expectations, your resistance to change. It's exhausting for everyone, especially Charles. I looked at my father. Is that how you see me now? As a burden, a source of drama? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. I just want peace, Clarissa. I want everyone to get along. At what cost, Dad? Your relationship with me, Mom's memory, your integrity. Jennifer sighed theatrically. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Every disagreement becomes this massive emotional confrontation. It's not healthy for anyone. She paused, then delivered the final blow. Especially not now. Something in her tone made me look more closely at her, at the way her hand rested protectively over her stomach, the slight fullness to her face that hadn't been there before. You're pregnant, I realized aloud. Jennifer smiled, triumphant. 14 weeks. We were waiting for the right time to tell you. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. Dad at 54 starting over with a new baby, building a truly blended family that wouldn't include me. A baby brother or sister for Ryan and Sarah. Jennifer continued, watching my reaction carefully. A child that will truly unite our family. The implied message was clear: this new child would belong to both of them in a way I never could. This baby would cement their family unit, making me even more peripheral. Congratulations! I managed the word, tasting like ash in my mouth. This is why the cabin doesn't make sense anymore, Dad finally said. With the baby coming, we're looking at properties that will accommodate all of us more comfortably, places with modern amenities closer to good schools for the kids. All of us. The phrase echoed in my mind. Dad, Jennifer, Ryan, Sarah, and the new baby. The complete family unit. No mention of space for me. I see, I said quietly. Clarissa. Dad began, his tone conciliatory. No, I interrupted. I finally do see. Very clearly. You've made your choice, Dad. You've chosen Jennifer and her vision for your life together. You've chosen her children born and unborn over the daughter you already had. You've chosen to let Mom be erased rather than honor her memory alongside your new happiness. That's not true, Dad protested weakly. It is true, I insisted. Every decision you've made since Jennifer entered your life has pushed me further away, has diminished Mom's place in our history, and I've kept making excuses for you, kept hoping you'd see what was happening. But you don't want to see it. It's easier to let Jennifer dictate everything, to believe her when she says my feelings are immature or unhealthy. You're twisting everything, Jennifer interjected. Charles loves you. We both want you in our lives, just in an appropriate way with proper boundaries. Boundaries defined entirely by you, I noted bitterly. Boundaries that keep shrinking my place in Dad's life while expanding yours and your children's. I turned back to Dad. Mom would be heartbroken to see what you've become. Not because you found love again, but because you've allowed that love to come at the expense of everything and everyone else. Dad's face hardened. You don't get to use your mother against me. Louise would have wanted me to be happy. Happy, yes. A doormat who abandons his principles and his daughter never. You need to leave, Jennifer said coldly. Until you can speak to your father with respect, you're not welcome here. I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. Don't worry, I'm going. But Dad should know this: every time he chooses you over me, every time he lets you diminish my place in his life, he's damaging our relationship in ways that might never heal. I looked at my father one last time, searching for any sign of the man who had held me through the darkest days of Mom's illness, who had rebuilt his life alongside mine, who had promised we would always be a team. When you're ready to be my father again instead of just Jennifer's husband, you know where to find me. But I'm done fighting for space in your life when you've made it clear I'm not a priority. I left without looking back, tears blurring my vision as I drove away from the house that no longer felt like home. The full weight of what had just happened wouldn't hit me until later, when I was alone in my apartment, surrounded by photographs of the family that now existed only in memories. The cabin was sold 2 weeks later. I didn't hear about it from Dad, but from my Aunt Karen, who sent me the real estate listing with a simple message: I'm so sorry, honey. That night, I broke down completely, sobbing until I had no tears left, mourning not just the loss of the cabin, but the loss of the relationship I'd once had with my father. The loss of the last physical connections to my mother. The loss of my place in my own family story. Rock bottom, they say, has a foundation. A solid place from which you can push yourself back up. As I lay on my living room floor that night, surrounded by old photo albums I'd managed to salvage from Dad's house months earlier, I finally found mine. The weeks following the confrontation at Dad's house were the darkest I'd experienced since Mom's death. I withdrew from friends, canceled photography assignments, and spent days in bed alternating between numbness and overwhelming grief. Amanda eventually used her spare key to my apartment after I'd ignored her calls and texts for 3 days straight. This isn't healthy, she said, opening my curtains to let in sunlight that felt too harsh, too revealing of what I'd become. You need help, Clarissa, professional help. I'm fine, I muttered, pulling the covers over my head. You're not fine, she insisted, yanking the blanket away. You haven't showered in days. There's no food in your fridge. Your clients are calling me because they can't reach you. This isn't you. Maybe this is me now, I said dully. The daughter who wasn't worth keeping. The family member who was easy to discard. Amanda sat on the edge of my bed. Your father made terrible choices. Jennifer is manipulative and cruel, but you can't let them destroy you. Your mother wouldn't want this for you. The mention of Mom broke through my haze of self-pity. She had fought so hard to live, had embraced every day even as cancer ravaged her body. What would she think of me giving up like this? With Amanda's help, I made an appointment with a therapist specializing in family trauma and grief. Dr. Winters was a calm, straightforward woman in her 50s who didn't offer platitudes or easy answers. What you're experiencing is a complex form of grief, she explained during our first session. You're mourning the loss of your relationship with your father, the secondary loss of your mother through the erasure of her memory and the loss of your identity within your family structure. Over the following weeks, our sessions helped me understand what had happened from a different perspective. Your father's behavior follows a common pattern after loss, Dr. Winters noted. Some people, especially those who haven't fully processed their grief, become vulnerable to relationships that offer a complete escape from pain. Jennifer provided not just companionship, but an entirely new identity, a clean slate where grief didn't exist. But what about his responsibility to me? I asked, anger seeping into my voice. To the family we built after Mom died. That's valid, she acknowledged. Your father abdicated his responsibility to maintain important connections while building his new life. But understanding the psychology doesn't excuse the behavior. It just helps you process it. Through therapy, I began to see that my father's choices reflected his weaknesses, not my worth. Jennifer had expertly exploited his unresolved grief and his desire for a fresh start, gradually isolating him from reminders of pain, including me. The most damaging aspect, Dr. Winters observed, is how your natural reactions were pathologized. Your attachment to your father wasn't unhealthy, it was the result of shared trauma and recovery. Your desire to preserve your mother's memory wasn't obsessive, it was normal and healthy. These insights didn't immediately heal my pain, but they helped me stop internalizing what had happened. The problem wasn't that I was too needy or too emotional or too attached. The problem was that my father had chosen the path of least resistance, allowing Jennifer to reshape his life and relationships according to her preferences. During this period of intensive therapy, I received an unexpected call from my mother's sister, Aunt Karen. "I'm going to be in Chicago next weekend for a medical conference," she said. "I'd love to see you if you're free." We arranged to meet at a restaurant downtown. When I arrived, I was struck by how much she resembled my mother, though Karen was 5 years younger and had a more angular face. "You look thin," she observed after our initial hug. "Are you eating properly?" The concern in her voice, so similar to Mom's, nearly undid me. "It's been a rough few months," I admitted. Over dinner, I found myself sharing everything that had happened with Dad and Jennifer. Karen listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "I knew things weren't good," she said finally. "But I had no idea it had gotten this bad. Louise would be heartbroken. I keep wondering if I could have done something differently," I confessed. "Been more welcoming to Jennifer, tried harder with the kids." Karen reached across the table and took my hand. "This isn't on you, Clarissa. Your father made his choices. Jennifer saw what she wanted and pursued it aggressively. You were caught in the crossfire." "I feel like I've lost both parents now," I said, tears welling. "And most of my connections to Mom are gone too. The house has been transformed. Her things are packed away or discarded, the cabin is sold. It's like she's being erased bit by bit." Karen was quiet for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait, but I think you need this now." Inside was a delicate silver locket I recognized immediately. "Mom's necklace, the one Grandma gave her. Louise wanted you to have it when you turned 30, but under the circumstances." Karen's voice trailed off. "Inside is a picture of her with you as a baby, and a small note she wrote for you during her final weeks." With trembling fingers, I opened the locket. On one side was the photo Mom looking radiant, despite her illness cradling me as an infant. On the other side was a tiny folded piece of paper. I carefully extracted it and unfolded it to read my mother's elegant handwriting. "Clarissa, my brave girl. Remember that you carry my love with you always, no matter where life takes you. You are stronger than you know. All my love, Mom." The tears came freely now. "I didn't know she left this for me." "There's more," Karen said gently. "She left letters, journals, mementos. Your father was supposed to share them with you over the years. If he hasn't..." "He hasn't," I confirmed. "They're probably boxed up somewhere if Jennifer hasn't thrown them out." Karen's expression hardened. "Then we'll get them back. Those belong to you, Clarissa. No one has the right to keep them from you." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of determination replace the hopelessness that had consumed me. "You're right. Those are mine." "And there's something else," Karen continued. "Louise left money in trust for you. Not a fortune, but enough to help with education, maybe a down payment on a home someday. The trust becomes accessible when you turn 30, but given the circumstances, we might be able to petition for early release. I was stunned. I had no idea. Charlie was the trustee, but I'm the secondary trustee. I've been monitoring the account. At least he hasn't touched that. The knowledge that Mom had planned for my future had left pieces of herself for me to discover gave me a renewed sense of connection to her. She hadn't abandoned me. She'd tried to remain present in my life even after her death. After dinner, Karen and I walked along the lakefront sharing memories of Mom that Jennifer could never erase. For the first time since Dad's wedding, I felt like I belonged somewhere to someone. You know, Karen said as we watched the moonlight on the water. Your mother was the strongest person I've ever known even before her illness. And you're so much like her, Clarissa. You have her resilience, her depth of feeling, her ability to find beauty in difficult moments. Jennifer may have taken your father, but she can never take the parts of your mother that live on in you. Those words became a lifeline in the weeks that followed. I returned to therapy with new purpose, not just to process my pain, but to rebuild my life on my own terms. I reopened my photography studio, focusing on projects that spoke to my experience. I began a series called Visible, Invisible, exploring themes of presence and absence, memory and erasure. The work was raw and personal, unlike anything I'd created before. A small gallery in Wicker Park offered to exhibit the series. I poured my heart into preparing the show, selecting images that told my story without words. Photos of empty spaces where loved ones should be. Objects that remained when people were gone. Shadows and reflections suggesting presence even in absence. On opening night, the gallery was packed with friends, colleagues, and strangers drawn by the promotional materials. I stood in a corner, overwhelmed by the response, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. These are extraordinary, Clarissa. I turned to find my father standing there, looking older and more tired than I remembered. He was alone. Dad, I said, surprised and uncertain. I didn't know you were coming. Amanda sent me the announcement, he admitted. I hope that's okay. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He gestured to a particularly powerful image, a photo of two chairs at a dinner table, one empty one occupied only by a shadow. This one. It's about us, isn't it? Yes, I said simply. Dad moved slowly through the exhibition, studying each piece with the careful eye of the photographer who had taught me everything I knew about the art. I followed at a distance, watching his reactions, the way his shoulders sometimes slumped, the way he occasionally reached out as if to touch the images before catching himself. At the final photograph, a series of family snapshots partially obscured by layers of translucent fabric. He stopped for a long time. The title card read simply, Erasure. When he finally turned to face me, there were tears in his eyes. I did this, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I allowed this to happen. We moved to a quiet corner of the gallery away from the crowd. Jennifer and I are having problems, he said without preamble. Have been for months, really, since before the baby. I hadn't known there was a baby already. Another piece of family news I'd been excluded from. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, unsure if I meant it. The pregnancy was difficult. Jane was born premature, spent weeks in the NICU. It was a challenging time. Jane, my half-sister. A sibling I hadn't met, hadn't even known existed until this moment. Is she okay now? I asked. Dad nodded. She's 6 months old, doing well. He hesitated. I'd like you to meet her someday, if you want to. The conversation felt surreal after so many months of estrangement. Why are you here, Dad? He looked down at his hands. Seeing your work tonight. It forced me to face what I've done. How I've failed you. How I've betrayed not just you, but your mother's memory. Jennifer's perspective on that seems pretty clear, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Jennifer doesn't control everything despite what she thinks, Dad replied, a hardness in his tone I hadn't heard before. The dynamics in our marriage have shifted since Jane was born, since the reality of our situation became clearer. What reality is that? That I made terrible mistakes. That I allowed myself to be manipulated because it was easier than facing my grief. That I sacrificed my relationship with you for an illusion of fresh start. He looked at me directly now. That I let Jennifer convince me your feelings were wrong when they were completely justified. I didn't know what to say. The acknowledgement I'd craved for so long had finally come, but it didn't bring the immediate healing I'd expected. I found your mother's letters, Dad continued. The ones she wrote for you. Jennifer had moved them to the attic. I've brought them tonight. They're in my car, along with some of the photo albums and keepsakes that should never have been packed away. Thank you, I managed. I know this doesn't fix anything, he said. I know I've broken your trust in ways that may never fully heal, but I want you to know that I see it now. All of it. How I let Jennifer separate us. How I failed to protect your place in my life. How I betrayed everything your mother and I built together. What changed? I asked, needing to understand. Many things, he sighed. Watching Jennifer's controlling behavior extend to Jane. Realizing how isolated I'd become from friends from my old life. Finding your mother's journals and remembering the promises I made to her about taking care of you. He paused, looking around at the photographs surrounding us. And this. Seeing how deeply I've wounded you expressed so powerfully through your art. It's like looking in a mirror I've been avoiding for years. For the first time in our conversation, I felt a small crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. Where does this leave us? That's up to you, Dad said quietly. I don't expect forgiveness, at least not right away. But I want you to know that I'm committed to rebuilding whatever you'll allow me to rebuild. On your terms, not mine or Jennifer's. And what does Jennifer think about this reconnection? Dad's expression hardened again. Jennifer and I are in counseling. There are many issues to work through, but I've made it clear that my relationship with you is non-negotiable moving forward. If she wants our marriage to continue, she needs to accept that. The crowd in the gallery was thinning now. Amanda caught my eye from across the room, raising an eyebrow in silent question. I nodded slightly to indicate I was okay. I'd like to see the letters, I said finally, and the albums. They're yours, Dad affirmed. Everything of your mother's that remains belongs to you whenever you want it. We walked to his car in silence. The trunk contained 4 carefully packed boxes, each labeled in Dad's handwriting, Clarissa, from Louise. There's more at the house, he said as he transferred the boxes to my car. Whenever you're ready. As we finished loading the last box, Dad hesitated. Your exhibition. It's remarkable, Clarissa. Your mother would be so proud of the artist you've become, of the woman you've become despite my failures. The mention of Mom spoken with genuine reverence, rather than Jennifer's dismissive tone, touched something deep inside me. I'm not ready for Sunday dinners or family holidays, I said carefully. But maybe coffee, sometime next week, just to talk. The relief on Dad's face was palpable. I'd like that. Very much. As I drove home that night, the boxes of my mother's legacy beside me, I felt something shift within. Not forgiveness, not yet. But perhaps the beginning of a path toward healing. A recognition that while my father had failed me terribly, he was still my father. And that relationship, however damaged, remained part of who I was. The weeks and months that followed brought slow, cautious steps toward reconnection. Coffee dates where we talked honestly about the past. Visits where Dad would bring baby Jane, allowing me to know my half-sister without Jennifer's presence. Difficult conversations about boundaries and expectations moving forward. I learned that Dad and Jennifer remained together but were fundamentally reassessing their relationship. Dad had begun individual therapy in addition to their couples counseling, working to understand the patterns that had led him to abdicate his responsibilities to me. Through it all, I maintained the boundaries Dr. Winters had helped me establish. I never visited their house. I declined invitations that included Jennifer. I was clear about what I could and couldn't offer in terms of reconciliation. Healing doesn't mean returning to how things were before, Dr. Winters reminded me. It means creating a new relationship based on honest acknowledgement of what happened and clear boundaries for the future. A year after my exhibition opening, I launched a new photography project focused on maternal legacies. Using my mother's letters and journals as inspiration, I created images that explored how mothers remain present in their daughters' lives, even after death. The work brought me national attention and a book deal. At the opening of this new exhibition, Dad arrived with Jane, now an active toddler with his smile and eyes. Jennifer was notably absent. "She understands this is your night," Dad explained simply. "Some boundaries are becoming clearer for everyone." As I watched my father showing my little sister the photographs, pointing out details with the same enthusiasm he'd once shown me, I felt a complex mix of emotions: sadness for what had been lost, gratitude for what remained, hope for what might still be possible. The journey wasn't complete. Some wounds were still tender to the touch. Trust once broken could never be fully restored to its original form. But in place of the shattered relationship was something new emerging, something honest and clear-eyed, something that acknowledged the past while making space for a different future. On my 30th birthday, I used part of the trust fund Mom had left me to put a down payment on a small cabin 2 doors down from where our family cabin had once stood on Lake Geneva. It wasn't the same, but it was close enough to feel her presence in the familiar shoreline, the quality of light on the water, the call of the same birds that had woken us on summer mornings. Dad helped me move in, working alongside me to repair the dock and paint the walls, both of us aware of the symbolism in rebuilding this space together. We didn't speak much as we worked, but the silence was companionable rather than strained. On the final evening before he returned to Chicago, we sat on the new dock watching the sunset, so reminiscent of the scene where he had proposed to Mom decades earlier. "I've been thinking about selling the house," he said unexpectedly, "starting fresh somewhere new." "What about Jennifer?" "The kids," Dad sighed. "Jennifer and I have decided to separate. We're trying to make it amicable for the children's sake, but it's been clear for some time that our relationship was built on the wrong foundation." I absorbed this news in silence. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part recognized the pain this would cause, especially for Jane, who was innocent in all of this. "What will happen with Jane?" I asked. "Shared custody," he replied, "and I hope a chance for her to know her sister better as she grows up." Sister. The word felt strange and right simultaneously. "I'd like that," I said softly. Dad reached over and squeezed my hand briefly. "Your mother would be proud of how you've handled everything, Clarissa. You've shown more strength and grace than I deserved." I thought about my journey over the past 2 years. The devastating exclusion from the honeymoon that had signaled my place in the new family hierarchy. The gradual erosion of my relationship with Dad. The confrontation over the cabin. The rock-bottom despair. And then slowly the rebuilding of myself and a new relationship with my father on different terms. "I'm proud of how far we've come," I said finally. "Not back to where we were, but somewhere new that honors the truth of what happened." As the last light faded from the sky, I felt my mother's presence around us, not as a ghost, but as a continuing influence, a legacy of love that had survived even the most determined efforts to erase it. The journey had been painful, but I had emerged visible once more, standing firmly in my own light while making peace with the shadows. I have a story for you all today that was incredibly painful to live through, but taught me so much about family boundaries and healing. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by the people who should love you most? Let me know in the comments if you can relate to feeling erased from your own family. Please like and subscribe if this story touches you, and share with someone who might need to hear that they deserve to be seen and valued, no matter what family drama they're facing. Thank you for being part of my healing journey by listening today.